Have you ever just stopped and felt like there's a huge disconnect between the world science talks about, a world of particles, forces, and equations, and the world you actually live in, the one that's full of color and sound and real meaning? Well, today we're diving deep into that fracture, that split in how we see reality, and we're going to look at a really powerful philosophical idea that's designed to heal it. Let's see if we can stitch our world back together.
Okay, so let's start with a simple question. Think about a sunset, that incredible, vibrant red that fills the sky. Is that redness actually out there in the world, or is it just a private little show happening inside your brain, a subjective illusion, while the real world is just a bunch of colorless photons zipping around? This one question, believe it or not, gets right to the heart of the problem we're going to unpack.
So here's the game plan. First, we're going to lay out this reality split. Then, we'll bring in two brilliant minds, Wolfgang Smith and Alfred North Whitehead, to get their diagnosis of the problem. After we really get what's gone wrong, we'll look at how their ideas can be combined to build a more unified cosmos. And finally, we'll talk about why any of this really matters for us today.
All right, so ever since the scientific revolution, it feels like this invisible wedge has been driven right down the middle of reality. On one side, you've got the world science describes. It's objective, it's mathematical, it's all about quantities you can measure. And on the other side, well, that's the world of our actual direct experience. It's subjective, full of quality and beauty and purpose. And for the last few hundred years, we've basically been told that only the first world, the scientific one, is truly real.
So, to help us understand what's going on, our first guide is the physicist and philosopher Wolfgang Smith. Think of him as our diagnostician. He put his finger on what he believes is the fundamental error that has just plagued modern thought for centuries, and he gave it a very specific name.
And that name is bifurcation. It's a fancy word for a simple idea, splitting something in two. In this case, it's splitting reality itself. But here's the key part. Smith argues the real mistake isn't just making a distinction for the sake of analysis. The error is declaring one half of that split to be the only real part, and then dismissing the other half as some kind of illusion.
And this right here, this is the great divide. On one side, we put the so-called real world of physics. It's all about numbers, mass, position, forces. But this world, in and of itself, is completely colorless, soundless, and has no inherent meaning. And on the other side, well, that's everything that makes life worth living, right? All the qualities, the colors, the sounds, the feelings, the beauty, all of that gets demoted. It becomes a subjective illusion, just a ghost in the machine of the brain.
Now, Smith wasn't alone in spotting this problem. Decades before him, another absolute giant of philosophy and mathematics, Alfred North Whitehead, diagnosed the exact same issue. He just came at it from a slightly different angle and gave it a different but equally powerful name. So let's get that second opinion.
Whitehead called it the fallacy of misplaced concreteness, and it's a brilliant way to put it. Think about it like this. A scientific model, like saying the world is made of atoms moving in a void, is a fantastic abstraction. It's like a map of a city. The map is incredibly useful, right? You need it to get around. But the fallacy, the error, is when you forget it's just a map and start believing the map is the actual city. We're mistaking our simplified model for the full, rich, concrete reality that we actually experience moment to moment.
And the consequence of making this mistake is just devastating. In Whitehead's own words, nature becomes a dull affair, merely the hurrying of material, endlessly, meaninglessly. You can feel the weight of that, can't you? For him, this wasn't just some abstract philosophical mistake. No, it was a catastrophe that completely drains the universe of any intrinsic value, any purpose, any life.
Okay, so we have two powerful diagnoses for the same core problem, Smith's bifurcation and Whitehead's misplaced concreteness. But, just identifying the illness is only the first step. The real question is, how do we fix it? How do we heal this split and put the two halves of reality back together again?
Well, this is where their ideas fit together so perfectly. Smith gives us the crucial diagnosis, and the first step, stop splitting reality. He calls it debifurcation. But it's Whitehead who gives us the full-blown cure. He offers a radical new system, a new way of looking at everything, where experience isn't just something that happens in our heads, it's woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. He argues that reality isn't made of dead, inert stuff, but of tiny, momentary drops of experience.
And this is where things get really mind-bending. In Whitehead's unified cosmos, that split we've been talking about gets healed at the most fundamental level you can imagine. He proposed that every single flicker of reality, down to a single electron, has two sides.
It is a physical pole, which is how it connects to the past, the data it receives from the rest of the universe, but it also has a mental pole, a tiny, tiny spark of subjective feeling or reaction to that data. So you see, in this view, mind and matter aren't two separate things at all. They're just two sides of the same coin, present in literally everything.
Now, thinking this way has some huge payoffs. First, quality and quantity are finally reunited. That redness of the sunset is just as real as the wavelength of the light. Second, that ancient nagging mind-body problem, it just kind of dissolves. See, if there's no such thing as purely dead matter to begin with, you don't have to waste time explaining how mind mysteriously pops out of it. The difference between a rock and a brain is just a difference in complexity. And third, you, the one doing the perceiving, you're no longer just a passive spectator. You are an active participant in a world that is inherently, deeply, full of quality and meaning.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Why does healing this philosophical split actually matter in the real world? Well, it's about a fundamental shift in our entire worldview. It's about moving away from seeing the universe as a dead, meaningless machine and towards seeing it as a living, breathing, interconnected cosmos.
This unified vision really changes our relationship with everything. It validates our lived experience. It tells us that the beauty we see and the meaning we feel is real. It re-enchants the world, suggesting that value isn't something we just project onto a blank universe, but something that's woven into its very fabric. It heals that deep conflict between what science tells us is true and what we feel in our hearts to be true. It gives us a universe that's a dynamic, creative process, not just a boring collection of inert objects.
So I'll leave you with this one final thought to chew on. The entire argument we've just walked through really hinges on this one radical shift in perspective. What if the fundamental building blocks of our universe aren't tiny bits of matter, not things at all, but momentary, interconnected drops of experience? What would that really mean for who we are and for our place in the cosmos?